Hello, everyone. My name is Preston Wilson, and I am the author of Beautiful Inside, Looking Within Ourselves to Solve Science's Greatest Mysteries. And I would like to thank you for tuning in and joining me as I re-engage with the most unlikely childhood dream of one day becoming a world-renowned physicist. Quite miraculously, after a very disastrous start to my life, one filled with so much violence, chaos, and dysfunction that I simply believed my dream was too big, I get to renew this pursuit by proposing what I believe has the potential to become one of the biggest discoveries in the history of our planet. So what a fitting and poetic way to kick off Black History Month 2022 by making new history with a potentially groundbreaking scientific discovery. This is honestly beyond my wildest dream, what I'll be proposing to you here shortly, and I am honored to be able to bring this to you. And again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for tuning in. So exactly what is this book about? Well, it's about these strange and mysterious objects called white holes, which they're mysterious because science is yet to declare any sort of observation of one of these in action. So there's very little that we know. However, one thing that we do know is that white holes are supposed to be an exact time reversal of a black hole. So let's start by talking about black holes, a very basic overview of what they are, just to get a general idea, and then we'll go from there. So, what is a black hole? Well, aside from being the absolute best fan section in all of professional sports, go Raiders, Raider Nation for life, a black hole is basically gravity gone wild. It's the result of the most massive stars in our universe expending their nuclear fuel. When their lives are over, they become a black hole. So I have a whiteboard here, and I'm gonna give you a very basic visualization of what these are, just to give you an idea. So, black holes were initially theorized by Albert Einstein, who envisioned reality, our universe, as having this fabric of space-time. And gravity itself would be what happens when an object with mass sits on this space-time. So let's say this is our Earth here. Not very massive, pretty tiny, so we don't really make a big indentation in the fabric of space-time. But as you increase the mass and density of objects, this warping of space-time becomes more dramatic. The gravitational pull becomes stronger as the mass of this object increases. So let's say our sun, for instance. I'll use a different color to represent. I'll use a different color to represent our sun. I don't know if you know this or not, but this isn't to scale. Our sun would make a more dramatic indentation in the fabric of space because it's more mass. And then there are even more massive objects such as neutron stars, and I'll use yet another color to represent these. A neutron star would be extremely massive and dense. I don't know the exact numbers, but a neutron star, 1 teaspoon of it would weigh billions and billions of tons. It's a very exotic material. A black hole is the most dense. It's what happens when matter has concentrated to such an extreme density that this warping, that bend in the fabric of space-time becomes so dramatic that not even light can escape. So, that's what a black hole is. So here, I will let me erase this. And black holes are just absolutely fascinating because they break our comprehension with the bizarre things that occur as an object falls into a black hole. So let's say this is going to be our black hole. If me or you were to fall into a black hole, the first thing we would experience, the dramatic gravitational pull would stretch us out. This is a process called spaghettification. I like to think of it as simplification, where the more complex structures that make our bodies up would be broken down into more simplified versions of themselves. So what I'm doing up here is I'm drawing very basic 3D shapes, just to give you a very rudimentary understanding of the strange effects that occur as something falls into a black hole. So as it fell, this three-dimensional cube, let's say that would become a two-dimensional square, and this would become a two-dimensional circle, and just a basic triangle. And then as you continually fell, the simplification process, or spaghettification, would further intensify until you're at your simplest point down here at the singularity of the black hole itself. Now that's one thing that happens, spaghettification, stretching out. Another thing that happens is time. The further you travel down into a black hole towards the singularity, the slower time would flow. So let's say each of these sections, we're just going to imagine that each section here is the same distance. So in the very beginning stages, the movie Interstellar gave a fantastic example. This is called time dilation. The idea that time can run differently depending on where you are in the universe. Interstellar, outstanding example. So let's say this took 100 years to cross this distance here. And this next little segment would then take, let's say, 10,000 years to cross the next little unit of distance. And as you went further, time would go even slower. So this would, say, be 1,000,000 years. Yikes. And then finally, you would have 1,000,000,000 years at this most simplified stage. And so, as you traveled further towards the singularity of a black hole, time itself would go slower. Now, like I said, my idea, what I wrote my book on, was about white holes. And like I said, there's very little that we know, besides the fact that it's the exact time reversal of this process here. One thing that we do know of black holes, this was a study done in 2012 by Alan Redder and Shlomo Heller of Israel. My apologies if I butcher your name. But they said that a white hole, because it cannot have a persistent ejection of mass, it has to therefore emit its entire payload within one burst. And there are all of these gamma ray bursts that they can see in the sky, and they say that's a white hole. They call it a small bang. The revival of white holes is a small bang, another repetition of the creation of our universe. So a white hole must emit its entire payload in one burst. Okay, so from this singularity, it's going to shoot out everything all at once. That's what a white hole is going to do. Yet we also know it's a time reversal of this. So although it emits its entire payload, its mass within one, it's probably going to experience a process similar to what happens as an object falls into a black hole. So it emits its entire payload at once, but it then transforms as time goes on. Because it's supposed to be the exact time reversal of a black hole. Now, when thinking about this, I asked myself, what if white holes are a mathematical representation for life itself? What if that's us? Because to me, this process seems like our tree of life here on Earth. We started off very simple, single-celled organisms, and we remained as single-celled organisms for nearly 2 billion years. That's an approximation. And as more time went on, as we went further away from the singularity, the genetic mutations increased. So we see more species as more time passes. We see more change occur to life here on Earth. Now, that's what my book is about. This idea, this what if scenario, saying what if life and white holes are one and the same? And what surprised me most is that by following this very basic what if scenario in my book, I was able to dramatically increase my understanding of scientific mysteries. Things like dark matter, for instance. If a white hole emits its entire payload all at once, just like our universe, the Big Bang, everything that exists today was created when our universe first began. Because matter, energy, and information, these things can neither be created nor destroyed, only changed. So most of what we are is potential. We don't know what we're going to become. It's formless. What if that is dark matter? Now, observational evidence. There was an astronomer, please forgive me if I butcher your name, Massimo Menighetti. He detected an overabundance of cold dark matter in very small places in distant galaxies. So that means that dark matter, that this very mysterious thing, it's concentrated in small areas. What if that's around planets? What if the gravitational lensing that we've detected is dark matter? This is what life will become. Now, this is where things got very bizarre. Because envisioning dark matter as our future, as what life is going to transform, and what we will use to fuel our growth and grow as a white hole. Here, give me just a sec. So, we know because light travels at a finite speed, we know when we look at the stars in the night sky, we're seeing them as they were in the past. Because it takes light a certain amount of time to get to us. Some light that we see has been traveling for millions and billions of years. But if dark matter is our future, then we are simultaneously looking at the past and future at once. So dark matter this is future information to be transformed by life forms. This is what white holes will grow into. Now, this is why I felt that my idea was so impactful just because of how much dark matter there is in the universe. There is 6 times more dark matter than normal matter. Which means if you look at all of the stars in the night sky, what we will ultimately become and grow into, this is just my idea, just my belief, but what the future holds for us is 6 times greater than everything we see. Wow. If you've ever needed a sign for hope, then that is it, because the plan that the universe has for us, what we are going to become, is far more than anything we could have imagined. Any idea that we're reaching some sort of final or end point, we are just beginning. We will always be just beginning, at least in terms of us as humans, if this idea is true, if we really are the white holes of the universe, because life is pretty primitive still. We're still evolving. Now, here's where the real magic comes from, is because I looked at us. I looked at our configuration, how we have, our brains and our eyes and our senses. Like, this is how a white hole grows. A white hole is, it's this object where matter, energy, and information, they can be emitted from this point, but nothing could penetrate it. That's the scientific definition of what a white hole is. And I looked at our brains, just how we're configured. Our brains are split right down the middle into 2 very separate halves. We have our left side, which is the logical, structured, sequential side. This is our analytic. This is what makes sense. This is like mathematics and what we observe. And then we have the right side. This is the abstract, the intuitive, rhythmic, emotional side of our brains. I looked at our configuration and the description of a white hole. White holes emit. They just grow. They spread. That's what they do. It's the opposite of a black hole. So if you think of a black hole as where things become more simple and things shrink down, white holes are the opposite. This is how things grow. We grow. Our minds, our consciousness grows. I looked at different beliefs because we have this right brain. We have an abstract part. This was a direct result of evolution, which is natural selection. It is the most efficient means of energy consumption within an environment. And so I looked at abstract beliefs, like our religions, and I said, what if the various religions that we have practiced as a species, what if these have been our best attempts to recognize our nature as a purposeful part of this universe? And this is where things got most bizarre, because one thing I looked at was the Christian belief in ritual baptism in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Now, my mom, she raised me in the church. We went every Sunday. In my early adulthood, after my time in Afghanistan while serving in the Marine Corps, I stepped completely away from religion. Also, I've been a big fan of science my whole life, although I'm not a scientist myself. I've read Carl Sagan, Stephen Hawking, Neil deGrasse Tyson, all of these incredibly intelligent individuals. And this is what I believed in my early adulthood. So I stepped away from religion, although I was raised in the church. But I remember growing up, I had so many questions. as to what exactly that meant. This idea, baptism in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. When this idea for the book came to me, I thought of, what if religion is a simple, abstract representation for our existence as a white hole? So I tried to view ourselves, like, what if that's us? The first part is the Father. That's the universe. That's everything outside of us. This is the silent mathematics running everything. We are made in the image of God. We are made of atoms. We are a whole bunch of atoms. And in fact, this idea, thinking of us as a white hole, it helped my understanding of the string theory's concept of a multiverse, envisioning each one of us as an entire universe, a quanta of a white hole. We are each one discrete unit of a white hole. So that is the first part of the Trinity, the Father. For the second part, the Son, this is our physical bodies. This is what we have control over. The event horizon of a white hole. We channel in information from our environment, and we use that information to affect our decision making. If it's hot, we're going to seek shade. If we're cold, we're going to bundle up. If we're hungry, we're going to eat. And the last part, the Holy Ghost. This is our consciousness, the very singularity of the white hole itself. Now, it was very bizarre and fitting developing this idea when it came to my concept of dark matter and envisioning that as our future, because that would mean, past, present, and future, it all exists as one right on top of each other. So technically it's the end of days because we're looking at our future. Our future's right there. It's undefined. And it gave me these end-time feelings, and it made me say, what if this is the big discovery? What if this is what the Bible was about? Which is bizarre because this is coming from someone who spent many years as an atheist. And the true magic of all of this is the fact that I wrote this book just off of belief. I'm a software engineer. Everything that I have learned about science and space, it's secondhand knowledge. I read Carl Sagan, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Stephen Hawking, Michio Kaku. These were my heroes growing up. So I grew up in the ghetto. I never saw a physicist that looked like me. And everything that I know, I had to have faith in science. So I used this idea of faith to write this book, and simply following this what if scenario, it led me to something that could be potentially world changing. This was a very bizarre experience for me, especially seeing as how this came to me after trying to show my arm. This scar that you see here, I did that myself because I wasn't okay in the head. I just went through so much trauma and turmoil and dysfunction that I thought my only solution was to take myself out. And something stopped me. I don't know what it was. I knew it was just in my own mind and that it only applied to me. But something stopped me. And when I finally went and I got help, and I started, overcoming all of this trauma and turmoil, my wildest dream that this idea, I thought, because of my situation and everything I went through, I would never become a physicist. That would always remain outside of my reach. And then just working through it, I might have I don't know, helped propose and help further our collective understanding. Now, I know, like I said, this is just my belief, and I'm a flawed individual. I can be wrong. My understanding of science is high school or college at best. There is so much that I don't know. But the reason that I feel so passionately about this idea is because of what we may be able to do with it. For instance, if life and white holes are one and the same, then we might be able to better understand cancer. Hear me out. Stephen Hawking, one of the most influential people in history, he spent his life talking about talking about black holes. And he clarified our understanding by saying black holes, they don't necessarily have to be big. They can occur anywhere in space where the density of mass exceeds a certain point. If that happens within our bodies, and we have a white hole happen, tumor, if we consume a lot of meat and, we get colon cancer, that's a buildup of mass over time, and a black hole is going to cause a white hole. That's unchecked cell growth. So if you're curious as to why I'm so passionate about this idea, even though it is pseudoscientific, it is bizarre, it is outlandish, but maybe it's exactly what we need. So thank you so much for tuning in. I am still working on this idea. I'm taking it step by step. I have no idea how to prove this further or where to go. I fly by the seat of my pants, and I'm praying my way through it, hoping to be guided and vulnerable and just honest. Because I believe in a better world. In this book, I write that maybe it's part of my duty to help establish heaven on earth. Maybe if we could learn to look at each other as a white hole, as a purposeful part of this universe, we're not an accident. Life is not an anomaly. We are made in the same image. Our bodies, this is the container for a white hole. It's the event horizon. And if we could learn to look at each other as a purposeful part, that's my wife's face, by the way, and she's beautiful. Well, not her eye. I did a little editing on my iPad, and I put in a nice little nebula for her eye, because this book and this whole idea, I would not be here without her and the influence that she had. So I am taking it step by step. I eventually want to get back into learning and learn math to see how I can, I don't know, further enhance this idea, because I believe it is absolutely incredible. So again, my name is Preston Wilson. I am the author of Beautiful Inside. You can read more about this idea that I proposed. It's available only on Amazon itself. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm honored. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.